Good evening. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. It's good to see all of you this evening. We invite you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, hey, Laurie. Sorry. Okay, the board is using a new board docs. We are trying to go completely paperless. We're not quite there, but we're getting there. So thank you, Janet, for your work. And so I know it may be a little bit of work in progress for everyone tonight, but I think I can get to number 2 on the agenda, which is a presentation from 4-H. Great. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Well, good evening. My name is Jada Bennett. I am the new 4-H Youth Development Agent here in Jefferson County. I work through WVU Extension Service, but I also am I'm located here in the county working with the youth and with our 4-H. There's 2 parts of my job. So there's the 4-H aspect of my job where I go out and I work with our 4-H members in the community, trying to encourage them and helping all of our adult volunteers work with them through youth development activities that we have. But then I also have another area, which is youth development. And a big part of that is offering my services to our school systems in the county. So some of that we have through our extension office, which is, I'm not the only agent, we also have an agriculture and natural resources agent, Emily Wells. Her and I can come into the school system and offer the teachers different resources to provide hands-on activities for the for the kids. One activity, which is a little bit more towards Emily's side, that we're planning out through the next few years, is called the Agriculture Institute. And it would be for educators to come to this Ag Institute and learn hands-on activities that they can then take into their classrooms. That they are teaching their kids math lessons, science lessons through agriculture that meet with the state standards. What we would be trying to do is to team with WVU so that way your educators here in the county can be getting credits towards any certifications that they need. It would be a class that they would take in the summer, so but then would carry over for them to be able to use throughout the year. They would be offered different supplies. They'd be offered lesson plans that they can take right back into their classroom. And I've actually taken the class before to see how it worked, and I left with a big box of stuff that I was able to then go out and disperse. Moving on with that, there are also agriculture-related activities that we can bring into the classroom. So we would come in and teach them alongside of the teacher. Some of the other areas that we have planned, I just started July 20th, so these are all plans in action that we're trying to get started over the next year or 2 years. One of the things is to increase the STEM, or moving towards STEAM activities. And there's a lot of hands-on activities that I can bring into the classrooms for the teachers to use. A lot of those activities I'm able to team up with teachers in the state to be able to see what standards they meet, so that I can contact a teacher and say, these are the standards they meet, you tell me when you want me to come and how you want me to set this up. I can also just give the educator the supplies. They can then implement it and then return the supplies to our office. One of the big things with giving the educator the supplies that I'm really hoping to bring to your county is robotics. So Lego Education has great robotics programs. I'm not sure if any of you have ever seen them. So one of them would be the WeDos. And I know some schools already have these kits, but trying to really get more funding in the county to be able to supply schools with these kits would really, I feel, be beneficial. Along with WeDos, which are usually more elementary related, they have larger robots for older aged kids. Getting these robots, it's obviously a large financial investment for the county, but that's something that I'm able to help with. Not that I have, a deep pocketbook that I can reach down into and hand you the money, but I have different avenues of grants that I can get and really help the county out that way. What I've seen with the robotics, I was in a county that the robotics were really starting to take off. And I've seen kids who could not understand a math lesson, could not get it, could not grasp it, be able to learn it because of using robotics. It's something that I really feel would be beneficial. But besides just robotics, I would like to see more STEM or STEAM festivals, just on a local basis, even just at a school, individual school, bringing in outside resources into these schools for the members to be able, or for the kids to be able to see and kind of play around with hands-on activities. Another area that I'm actually working on that would really be working with your high schools, but I'm trying to contact universities and trade schools first, is reaching out to the high schoolers to go further with their education after high school graduation. I really think no matter what sort of certification or degree they would get, it's very important for them to get some sort of education after high school. So one of the things that I'm trying to figure out if this avenue would be able to be beneficial to everyone involved is working with places like Blue Ridge and Shepherd, James Rumsey, and other universities and other just tech schools to kind of do a mesh between a college fair and a STEM festival. So it's getting kind of that hands-on learning activities about these colleges. Because if you take a high schooler to a college fair, and I have done this, you kind of get their eyes rolling in the back of their head, like they're completely bored. But I think if we brought something in where they could see what these degrees, what these certifications, what these licenses can really do for them, I feel it would really benefit them. So these are some of the avenues that I'm trying to work on and get started. I'd also just like to see Energy Express brought back to Jefferson County. That would be something that would be probably not next summer, but the summer after, because it is a program that really, if I was to bring it back for next summer, I would have already had to start getting the funding for it a couple months ago. But that's something that I would like to see brought back for Jefferson County. But the main thing is, I'm here to tell you that I'm here in the county. I am very excited to be in Jefferson County. I grew up local, so I'm kind of just coming back home of sorts. And I'd like to be able to help your students, and not just your students, but your educators. Because I think that, sometimes the extension service is underutilized, and Emily and I are very excited about getting into your schools and helping your teachers teach the youth. That's what one of our main things is. So I don't know if any of you have any questions for me or any resources that you want. I had papers to hand out to everybody, but speaking of technology, my computer decided not to work for me, and nobody can get it fixed today. So
we're well aware of that issue as well. So, Ms. Bennett, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to see us. Jefferson County schools, as well as this county, have had a long, deep relationship with 4-H and with County Extension. We're very proud of not only the relationship we've had, but the continuous support that the taxpayers and voters of this county have shown by providing portions of the levy that comes to the schools that we dedicate to 4-H. We're very excited to hear about your ambitions and the programs that you'd like to bring closer to our students as well as our educators. So, questions, comments, colleagues?
Well, thank you very much.
Dr. Gibson, we'll make sure that we get her with the proper curriculum folks to get going.
Sir.
And Energy Express has had a long, very successful track record of serving our students in the summer. So we would be eager to work with you to bring that back.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Superintendent.
A couple of points of note. It's been a fairly busy week thanks to everyone who came out to meet and greet our new teachers last week. We have a great crop of 62 new professionals in the system who we're very excited about. Also, today, as you've seen, is the inauguration of our use of board docs as our board program. And while it may take a little bit of adjustment, one of the reasons, first and foremost, that we obtained board docs is for policy. As you know, we are in the process of completely revamping our 319-page policy manual, which right now is a single PDF, which one must scroll through endlessly. It's not searchable, and it is very frustrating for our staff and for our public to try to use something that's so not user-friendly. So as we're going through the process of the board reviewing, public reviewing, and then updating our policy, Board Docs is a searchable index that has them broken down by topic and by chapter, and has a very, very nice search index and allows you to cross-reference it with state and other policies as well. So we're very excited about that opportunity. From the board's perspective, one of the things you'll see that it allows you to do, which we couldn't do under our previous system, is it separates all of the different agenda items and attaches the information to that specific agenda item. It will also attach video from this board meeting to the specific agenda item which it was discussing. It makes things much more transparent and user-friendly for our public who want information. In addition, we have also rolled out this week for the first time, and I have to give kudos to Mr. Pettiford and our exemplary human resources staff. This week, for the first time, we did two big things. Number one, we were able to send out all of our staff contracts electronically. We're in the process of rolling that out in batches. The staff were able to review their contracts and then use electronic signature to sign and send them back. And just starting today, we've been working on this for a month or two now. Previously, we had an 80-plus slide PowerPoint that we saved and sent out to all of our work locations and said, spend however long it takes you slogging through these slides to make sure that everyone gets their policy and procedure, and then print out for all of your 100-plus staff this page of paper that says, I attest I've read the policy and procedures. Have them sign it, send it back to us. We assign someone to match up every school with whether or not someone sent it in. Notice all the blanks was just massively time-consuming. We now, for the first time, we sent out an email today. All of the staff have electronically all policies and procedures, employee bulletin. They can click on it. It's PDF. They can download it and keep it. They can save it to their desktop. They have within that same email a video link that shows on their screen. It is a 34-minute policy and procedure video that covers everything that's required, and then at the bottom they click attest via electronic signature that they've read it and they're done, and it stays in an archive for them so that they can go back and see, did I sign my contract, did I sign the policies and procedures? And then we have an electronic system for being able to go in and look immediately and see who signed and who hasn't. So while that sounds, it's the 21st century, of course you can do that, the legwork on the back end, several months of working with vendors and trying to get Weavis and our old HR system from the state and Talented and all of these different components to work together has been enormous. So I just want to say a huge thanks to Mr. Pettiford and his staff for really modernizing that aspect of our program.
It's supposed to be up and running now because I went in and created a password and I got an error message.
Well, it may perhaps be due to your status as a board member, but
Okay.
we will, of course you would. Thanks
Sorry.
for stealing that thunder.
we
It
don't-
worked for everybody else, but we'll make sure that we go in and make it work for you. Let's get it.
No, I think you should think twice about that.
I think it's, yeah, exactly. So trust and believe. I'm sure the first thing Mr. Pettiford will do tomorrow morning is go into it, or maybe tonight, go into his office and figure out.
Got the email, and then I got the call from Mr. White, so I was just following directions.
I know, it was
and
pretty exciting, wasn't it?
It was, until it said error.
So again, the first time we do anything, and one of the things that we're asking our staff to do is be patient. One of the things that we're trying to do right now is lay the foundation for. We have 1,200 employees. We are the largest on-site employer in Jefferson County, period. APU has a lot of off-site folks that they have in different locations, but we employ more people who come to live and work right here. And as that number grows, which as you'll hear later on tonight, it is exponentially, the more efficient we are right now, the better we'll be able to hold down central office costs, the more we'll be able to attract young, talented teachers who want to work for a system that's organized and competent and has great tools. So all of those things we need to put in place now, because every 50, 60, 100, 200 more employees that you get, it gets that much harder to organize it and get it together. So we will definitely make sure yours works too.
It's a great thing. I mean, last year we had the student information online where you just had to verify. You didn't have to fill out the forms. This year we're doing stuff for staff, so we're chugging along.
Definitely. So, thank you.
Excuse me, the 62 new teachers.
Yes, sir.
I know, I'm sure at some point in the near future, we'll get kind of an overview of how the labor force has changed this year. But that 62 sounds like a lot. Do we know roughly how that compares to the
Well, it's
past couple-
professional positions, not
Right.
just teachers,
Right,
but yes, sir.
That seems like a lot, I mean, which is great. Look forward to having them, glad they're here, but do we know, or do you want to say for a later presentation how that compares to last year, et cetera?
One of the things that Mr. Pettiford has committed to doing is, much like you, the media has asked us for the same thing. So his staff is preparing a chart that shows from last year to this year breakdown of the teachers at different levels, professionals at different positions, and how we compare. I know when I spoke with Mr. Arvon, of the 217 open positions he had, I think he still has 72 open as of last week. So-
And we've also, I know we've discussed this, but we'd also be interested in knowing how many of our talented teachers we've lost to neighboring jurisdictions who are more competitive financially. Is it possible to glean that information?
It is. In the cases where we know, oftentimes folks will tell us, like, we've lost a multitude of speech-language pathologists this year.
I noticed some, I think, tonight.
Yes, sir, we did.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating, but, moved because my husband got transferred, moved because I'm moving out of state for family matters, moved, so there's a host of different reasons.
But, I mean, to Ms. Pettiford, you can tell us there may be some labor restrictions or some code restrictions, but I think it would be very valuable for us when we lose someone strictly because of what Loudon offered or Frederick or Washington County. That's different than someone moving out of state or changed family circumstances, and that information is very important to us to take to the legislature. So I think we need to try to track that specifically if we're not.
Yes, sir. We do offer exit interviews, but to your point, we can be a bit more aggressive about tracking the reasons.
We've got to
Yes,
be
sir.
aggressive about that.
That's a good point, to have that data for future.
On board docs, can you tell us briefly, so what does this mean for the public? I mean, like if they go to the website, where do they need to go and what do they?
They'll go to the same place that they always have. When they go to the board agenda, it will take them into here. They'll simply see a slightly different interface than they saw before.
There's a new link called New Board Agendas. and you just click on that. The old ones are still archived, so that we haven't lost anything that was already there. If anybody wants to go back and preview a previous meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions? Minutes from our last regular board meeting. Now, let's see. And it's just the last regular board meeting? Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any clarifications, modifications? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Citizens' comments. We have one member of the community signed up tonight. We invite you to join us at the podium, and we ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Jessica Hoffman.
Hi, I am here to speak about my daughter's attendance at Shepherdstown Elementary. She was registered there, did her pre-K at Shepherdstown Daycare, did the walkthrough, did the testing, and last Thursday I got a phone call from the principal saying that it was overcrowded and she would be transitioning to North Jefferson, which we already had planned out. She wanted to be, me to drop her off. I work at Rite Aid in Shepherdstown in the pharmacy. Was going to drop off her sister at pre-K, no problem. So that's not really an option. I don't know if there's any way that she can get in there, but I don't really feel like that's a good choice for her. We live a half a mile from the school. It's not like we live like the whole way out on the other end of town. I called North Jefferson 3 times. Nobody's gotten back to me. I called the principal. I've never heard back. So I'm kind of concerned about the lack of communication on that part when I don't even know anyone that's going to be there at the school. My last point is, I really want her to go to school in Shepherdstown, which is why we live there and pay to live there. And the only option would be for her to go to the Montessori school, which would be $620 a month for her to go to kindergarten there. So I'm just not really sure what to do about this.
Thank you. And we know that this is a very difficult issue for a lot of our community. Since this issue is not on the agenda tonight, we're prohibited from addressing your specific issues or concerns, but we can say, first of all, we've just been through a whole redistricting because of crowding.
Right.
And we've tried to make as many short-term accommodations as we can. Mm-hmm. And this board is looking at, Shepherdstown is clearly a community in great need of expanded resources, and we're in the process of looking for them. It's not going to help you between now and next Wednesday.
Week, right.
But Dr. Gibson, I don't know, is there anything more you can say generally about where we are right now in terms of reviewing and when people will know for sure, or is that period already passed?
We'll know for certain whether or not their child gets in.
Yes.
Well, again, we operate on the basis of the information that we have at the time. So if we have folks who've come in and registered for kindergarten and your child is 3rd on the wait list, until someone comes in and tells us that they've moved or that they're going to another school, we don't take that child off. So at this point, the state limit for kindergarten class is 20. And they allow us to pay the teacher additional salary to go up to a max of 23. We've already taken that step. One of the things that you'll hear when you hear about capacity reports from Mr. Blanc tonight is that of our 10 elementary schools, 6 of them are already at 85% capacity. Okay. So to your point, yes, sir, it is an incredibly difficult situation. We do not have the luxury of increasing beyond the 23 student limit at each one of the schools. So to her point, it's not only the Shepherdstown Elementary School families who are going through this, it's the South Jefferson families who are going through this, the T.A. Lowry families who are going through this, where they are 1, 2, 3 students over their limit, and so we are busing them all to other other locations that have openings to be able to serve all of them.
And to the credit of the redistricting committee, they acknowledged this problem, which is one of the reasons that they had recommended redistricting part of Shepherdstown.
Yes, sir, and we did, and I will also point out, although, again, to Ms. Hoffman's point, this doesn't help her and help her family.
I mean,
And-
my
and
child's
for the-
already done the walkthrough, so how do I explain this to her next week?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
She's not in 5th grade, she's going into kindergarten.
Yes, ma'am. We did not allow any transfers into Shepherdstown Elementary School this year for that very reason. It was one of the schools that was restricted from transfer.
And we will address the communications issue that you've raised as well. So,
Thanks.
Thank you. Consent agenda?
Ms. Harder, can you please give him the 2 items that need to be changed on the consent agenda?
There are a couple changes. Number on the first section in human resources.
Okay, and I apologize. Bear with us just a moment. I want to see how to...
Click on human
Oh, I
resources.
clicked on it. There she goes. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, under the first section, number A of human resources, number 9, Brian Keptat, delete. And there is a misspelling, I think, of a Richard Harder. I think that might be under
It'd be number 22.
this. I just heard about. Yeah. Okay. Yes, it should be Harner instead of Harder.
H-A-R-N-E-R.
H-A-R-N-E-R.
Okay.
Like my name. And then under the contracted services section, that's all under human resources. Under the contracted services section, there is a change. Becky Willingham is listed incorrectly. She should be an interventionist instead of instructional specialist.
Okay. Do we have a motion to consider consent agenda? Any questions? If not, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Unfinished business, approval of the environmental science textbooks. Mr. Blanc, how are you, sir?
Just fine, okay. If you recall, our last board meeting, we put the book out for review and did not receive any comments. I do have Randy Minez here, the science chair at Washington High School that served on that textbook adoption committee, but I guess did not receive any comments.
Do we have a motion to consider? And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions? Can you refresh my memory? I know it hasn't been that long ago, but is this a hard text? It's not, is it?
It is a hard textbook,
Is it?
but it does come with an online resource as well. You get, and bear with me because I haven't looked at it since spring, but I believe it's one online resource for every one hard copy is usually the bundles we end up getting. And that would also involve most of the teacher resources now are on the websites as well that come with it, and comes with that On average, it's usually a 6-year licensure that we had that with. So the one pitfall of it may be that in 6 years, we may be coming back to you asking help in extending that licensure. But we do have that resource available to us as a teacher and for the students as well.
Roughly how many books would we be ordering?
We came up with the thought of the classroom sets. I know at our school we have 2 teachers teaching it, so we would need 2 classroom sets, and we have arranged for a few extras for any students that have any needs, IEPs or whatnot, that needs to have a text at home. So we have a few extra beyond that classroom set here. So unfortunately, at this point, we're not looking at every student having a book, but what we have done in the past with this, last school year, I believe it was the year science, we just did classroom sets, but we set up a very generic sign-in for the online resource, so that way, when they're at home or wherever they are that has internet access, they can get on that online resource at least and have that available to them at any time.
So if kids, students have internet access, the teachers believe that they can get to all the materials they need for any out-of-classroom work?
Yes, because literally the online digital copy is the exact hard copy textbook. So, I mean, they have literally everything at their fingertips if they have that. And we always do set up kind of a library check-in, check-out system for any student that doesn't have that online access at home. That's something that we've set up in our department at Washington. So that way, that child that may not have that still has that opportunity to have that resource when needed. So again, that's kind of the need of having a few extra on hand than just that classroom set.
And Jefferson's offering this too, right?
Yes. Now I can't tell you how many teachers are teaching it over there. I just know Washington's.
Yeah. But in terms of making or having access to students who don't have internet, we need to make sure that it's a consistent policy. I know some students at Jefferson, including my own, who have limited access to internet. So I would hope that those students are accommodated as well.
Do you know the answer to that, Mr. Blanc, as far as, is Jefferson doing the same thing with the textbooks, having classroom sets?
Yeah, they'll go with classroom sets, yeah, and the teachers have been informed, the principals, that we never want to make assignment contingent upon having internet at home. If that happens, we address that very promptly, so they realize that we can't hold any student responsible for something they may not have.
I appreciate the answer, but I tell you what I'm hearing here is we have one school that has put together a policy and we don't know what the other school's doing, and they better both be consistent. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, that once again, Jefferson doesn't give assignments that require internet access to complete their work, internet at home.
So it sounds like what your concern is, number one, did both schools decide jointly to go with classroom sets? And yes, they did. Number two, we do have a policy, and it's not just ours, but it's also a West Virginia policy. The school system is legally required to provide any resource that the child needs in order to complete their academic assignments. We can't tell you have to bring in a box of pencils in order to go to school here. We can't tell you that you have to have internet access in order for you to do that. Now, do we have teachers who make that mistake? Yes, we do. I know of twice in the past year that we've had parents who filed a complaint with our office or with C&I, and we've gone back to the teacher and we've said, you have to wipe those grades out of your grade book. You had no right to give those kids a graded assignment that they were required to work on at home. Now, if the kid had time to work on it in class and chose not to do it, different story. But If it was, here's your homework assignment, or here, in one of the cases, it was an assignment that was over the holidays and it required you to have internet access, the teacher had to go back and remove all of those grades from their grade book and had to assign an alternative. So when it's reported to us, I won't say that it never happens, but if a teacher makes that mistake, it gets addressed, those grades all come out, and we address that issue with the teacher.
Thank you. Other questions?
Just remind me again, so this is earth science. What science textbooks did we approve not too long ago?
I'm sorry, this is for
Environmental
environmental
science.
science. We did earth
yes, it
science
was.
with our adoption, that's our freshman course. This is
Okay,
an
that's why it
elective
was-
course that will be offered more so to junior seniors. So it's
Okay.
an elective course for them. And we just adopted this curriculum. The state has always had the CSOs for it, but we as a county adopted this curriculum last school year. So that's
Okay,
why
so this is
we're ordering the
basically
books.
3 or 4 year science
Yes.
credit. Okay. And do we know about how many classes we have at each school that are, this year you said you have 2 different teachers teaching it?
Yes, I believe course-wise, I do have 2 teachers teaching, but I think it's something like 5 or 6 sections of it, somewhere around there. Jefferson, I don't know.
Are we going to have these books by next week?
Speaking with Miss Farrow, she said as soon as we get this, we'll get the order in. She's literally just has hit the purchase button and we'll be on our way. So hopefully, we won't have them for when students start, but hopefully about 2 weeks in. So, I mean, honestly, we can do a little song dance with some stuff here and get the ball rolling with some background information by that time. And hopefully, once the books come, we're ready to get into the meat of it. So
So we're not
hopefully-
going to wait and sit there and not
No.
do anything until the,
Oh,
okay.
no, these students, at Washington, these students will be engaged and working. We got many other resources. Also, with having also an AP environmental class, we have some resources we can kind of pull from there to help fill in some gaps until we get the actual textbooks here. So we're not without a flashlight in the dark here. So we have things that we can definitely pull to help us out here in the very beginning of things.
I would also point out to the board, we've been having a significant amount of discussion with both the board and with our staff about us investing in the staff development and work of our teachers. There are an enormous amount of resources out there, and textbooks, oftentimes, they are certainly very useful, but they are one resource among many different resources, and we do have some folks who have a heavier reliance on week 1, chapter 1. Let's go to the next work page. And no matter how good a textbook is, it will never, ever, ever match our state standards exactly. That's why we have a teacher in the room. If a textbook could teach any better than a person, woohoo, but they can't. So I would remind everyone that textbooks are tools for teachers, but there are hundreds of tools. There are so many tools of technology and manipulatives and resources that are out there, and our great master teachers can pull from all of them. And where they request the textbooks is one of them, that's great, but as instructional practitioners, we have to get beyond teaching is more than a textbook. That's one thing. So just to be clear about that.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. All in favor of approving the adoption of the environmental science
Aye.
textbook? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Next item is approval of settlement agreement.
Yes, sir.
Related to the, this is related to the construction of the bus facility and the Shiloh Citizens Association representing a group of citizens who live adjacent to the bus garage?
Yes, sir, it certainly is. All of the board members have in front of you a copy of the proposed settlement agreement, which has been reviewed by legal counsel and accepted by both legal counsels. And in essence, it has three fairly simple agreement points. Number one, we as a board to provide a shield from the bus garage to the citizens of Shiloh, built a berm that separates those and placed some privacy fencing along it, along with some vegetation. The board agrees 3 years from the date of having planted all of the vegetation to remain that. The board agrees to maintain the privacy fencing as long as we operate that bus garage as a bus garage facility and the Board of Education owns it. And number three, that we will also ensure that the lighting, which is on the back of the property, is on timers, and those timers will shut the lighting down after dark, with the exception of when bus drivers are scheduled to come back in after evening trips. If you're coming back from Charleston at 2 in the morning, it's not safe for you to come back in the dark. So we'll have them time to come on at those so that our bus drivers, our staff safety comes first. That may be an inconvenience for some folks, but they'll only be on as long as necessary for our bus drivers to operate, and then they'll go back off. Those are the three primary points of the agreement.
Now, so first of all, this is basically, as the board will recall, Shiloh had filed a suit. And they've really, while they've not had any success with their suit, it had proceeded to the, I thought it had, I'm sorry, I'm looking here to see if it had gone beyond circuit court, but in any event, they have presented us with this proposed settlement as a release from any further legal action on their part. And of course, there's no admission of any guilt on anyone's part. The three primary issues that we need to look at, I believe, are the issues at the bottom of page 1 that the superintendent has outlined. The one that is different from previous discussions, I believe that our council went back to their council and we had generally agreed to the three issues: plant trees and shrubs, and maintain the berm for a period of time, maintain a privacy screen, and to use timers on the lights except for when for use of the facility after hours. The area where they came back and asked for further consideration was that we maintain the privacy screen for as long as we own the property, as opposed to for 3 years.
Yes, sir.
I have heard some concern from my colleagues about that, so I guess let's first get a motion to consider, and then let's do just that.
So moved.
Second. Okay, comments?
I have a quick question for you, or maybe Ralph can answer this one. The screen that we put on the fencing, what is the lifespan of that typically?
It's the first screen we ever put up in this kind of situation, so I don't know what the lifespan is, but I can find that out for you very quickly by next board meeting. Or I believe that however, I do believe that it's about 5 to 7 years probably, because it gets sunlight all the time. It's going to have to come down and go back up at some point.
Okay, and then the trees that we planted, aren't those between the fencing and the homes in the back? So once the trees get to a certain size and density, is it going to be difficult to maintain that
The screen?
Screen.
It's far enough away from the screen. We didn't plant them right next to the screen. They're
Okay.
down the hill a little bit.
Okay, so the screen will always be visible?
But the screen wouldn't be visible once all of the trees have taken off. The trees are close enough together, according to the people who planted them, that as they grow, they would screen it itself. You know, they would create the screen, really.
Okay. And are all of the trees that we did plant a year or so ago doing well?
I haven't myself looked at them in the last year, but I can have somebody go out and check. Certainly.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? So there are a couple of ways we could look at item number 2. One, Ms. Skinner's, we could say that we would agree to maintain the privacy screen for the lifespan of the initially installed screen. Or we could say that we would maintain the privacy screen until such time as the vegetation has grown, until such time as the vegetation
Is the screen.
Develops into a visual barrier.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see 50 years from now somebody having to spend money to put a new screen up when
Right.
it's no
Yeah,
longer
when
necessary.
Right. Time as the vegetation, until such time as the vegetation
Develops. Grows. Matures.
So we will, I think the board would, so we'll probably want to consider some modification to that language. Something perhaps like until such time as the vegetation provides substantial cover to the fence. Because it's not the screen that we really care about, it's the fence.
Yes, sir, as a visual barrier.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. Provides reasonable cover to the fence visibility.
I doubt whether, pardon me, I doubt whether the fence is offering much screening anyway. I mean, if you look at where the top of the fence is and where the top of the lights are, and they're up there, the light from that's going that way is going to be over top of the fence. So the screen's not that much. I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
when the trees grow up tall enough, in the next couple of years, most of them, then they will do a lot more to screen than the fence.
Although I will point out that we have shields on the light.
Right.
So
that
the shielding gets most of the light. It's so that you
it's
don't see
direction.
the buses driving back, and you don't actually, it's lowered at, you're right, it's not high up. It's so that you don't see the buses going back and forth.
Are there any other issues related to this proposed agreement that anyone wants to raise? Yes, Mr.
I'm sorry.
No,
but
please.
The lighting says exactly that it would go off at dark, And we're not going off at dark, we're going
No,
off
sir.
like 11 o'clock.
No, sir. What it says is that the lights will generally be turned off outside of the hours of school operations, and that all parties recognize that the lights will be operated as necessary for the protection and safety of our staff while performing after-hour duties.
Great.
Well, what time do they normally go off now?
11 o'clock.
Okay, but that's after school hours, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, that's fine. The time you said it meant 11 o'clock.
It's after school hours, but it's not necessarily after the buses run because of athletic events and all of that stuff. Student trips and what have you.
But there's a mechanism for them to come back on when somebody comes back in, correct?
There is.
If somebody comes in at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock.
So, now, if I step outside, if I'm thinking of this from the standpoint of Shiloh for a moment, wouldn't you think that they would expect that after outside the hours of school operations means sometime closer to 5 or 6 o'clock?
And we could certainly, we have complete control over those timers. We could set them to go off at 7 p.m. and then only have them come on if we have a trip or if we have athletics returning.
Aren't they on, wouldn't they just automatically come on if someone comes back? Or can you have them set that way?
We can have it set.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I would ask a colleague to propose amending the proposed agreement to reflect the language that we have recommended for item number 2.
So I'll make an amendment that we will choose to accept the pieces of the agreement with the changes of until such time as vegetation matures and develops a visual barrier, or however we want to see fit in wording that. Is that appropriate? And also that it would provide reasonable cover to the fence visibility, because really that's what we're looking for.
Right.
And then no, that would be it. So then 3 will stay the same with the understanding that we will look at making those timer changes.
Okay. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
We're not putting the timer in there? Did you?
No.
I don't think we ought to bring that issue up.
Correct.
It's understood.
They're not.
Oh,
they're
correct.
not-
No. Yeah.
It's definitely understood and worded.
Right. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, thank you, and if you need help with that, you got the
Yes, sir.
modified language and we'll send it back. Okay, new business. Madam Marone, how are you?
Mr. President, Madam Superintendent, board members. This evening, I am here to ask you to approve Perry and Associates to conduct our fiscal year annual audits for fiscal year 17, fiscal year 18, and fiscal year 19. It will be for a 3-year renewal, renewed annually for 3 years. Just an overview of the process. We came to the board, I think it was in April, to ask permission to bid for a private auditor. We then have to notify the State Department. They send us a bid packet that's fairly nicely done. We sent out 6 RFPs, received 3 bids, 2 declines, and 1 no response. I think, and I apologize, I know that the packet, I'm getting used to the board docs too, and I learned today from Dr. Gibson the way it can be readable so you don't have to turn your head, but the scoring sheet is in there. Perry and Associates have been our auditors for the past 3 years. Just as a reminder, they came in after Teed and Associates, who were disbarred from the auditors, and picked up our fiscal year 14 audit. The difference between this year 3-year bid and last year is actually $100 lower. Our lowest bidder, which we are not awarding to, had no West Virginia experience, and we had some concerns bringing a new auditor in as a first-time auditor for the state of West Virginia. And the highest bid we had for 6 years, Tetrick and Bartlett, who we adored, their pricing is just significantly higher. And that would be for both our central office audit and our school audits. We refer to them as school audits. They're actually agreed upon procedures. They're more compliance audits with the law.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Questions? And I'm sorry, I think you said this, but have we used them before at all?
They
Yeah.
they were for the last 3 years.
Okay.
There's no requirement to switch
Right.
auditors. Typically, every 6 years I do,
Yeah.
just as I think it's a
Right.
good practice. So this would be their last 3 years with us, unless financial constraints would leave us with them.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Surplus vehicles?
Surplus vehicles. We are going to do a new surplus system this year, where we're actually going to try to put them online so that we don't just do an open bid. We'll have a bidding. Mrs. White, has used this in the past and said that she found a great deal more money for us in this situation, where we lots of times we're getting like $1,000 for a bus. They were in Morgan getting almost $6,000 for a bus. So we're going to be trying to see if we can get a little more money out of these buses when we sell them. But basically, the one thing about a bus, when we do get rid of it, it's well used. If you look down the list, like bus 42 is a 2000, so it's 17 years old, and it's got 181,000 miles on it, and it needs a transmission. So, that's what we've put on this list. We've only put things on the list that we are very well used. There is an error on the list. I got the list from Richard Buzzard, and Richard said that he had made an error on 55. 55 doesn't have 97,000 miles, it has 177,000 miles. None of the buses all of the buses are above, 169,000 is the lowest one we have. And all of which, the 169,000 bus, also we're going to keep the bus. We won't be selling the bus. We'll be using the bus for parts. So we'll be using the parts off the bus for the good parts, of course, for other buses that don't run or have an issue. There are a couple other vehicles on the list, all of which are in well in disrepair, and are vehicles that we've been holding on, and I'm not really sure why. At this point, being at the bus garage, we are not holding on any longer, and we would like to get rid of these vehicles. The first one says excessive rust. That vehicle is a truck, and it does not have a rear bumper at all, like that whole section, because they were using it for snow and for salt. The salt has actually eaten the bumper completely. I suppose somebody might want it when we put it out on the web for sale, but I don't see it getting a great deal of money with it, especially considering it's got 232,000 miles also. But basically that's the list, all of which are really needed to be surplused.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Before you're going to ask a question, you got a second? Second. Go ahead.
The last vehicle on here, the 2003 Ford van, is that the one that's
The
been
black
sitting
one
in this
sitting out here
parking
has
lot?
been sitting out here for a long,
Okay.
long, long time. And that van has a major steering problem. Actually, I drove it for about a week, and at that point, I'd have to move the steering wheel about that far before it started to turn. And it would be very excessive to fix something that's in that kind of shape.
So we're using a new process.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And we're hoping that that process works so much better for us. There's actually a website, and we'll be putting, it's a government website, and we'll be putting on the government website, trying to get more revenue.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
The next one is also me. Now we're buying stuff. Remember the board, the state board gives us money for buses, and what we intend to do with our bus money this year is, first, we had an accident last year. We actually lost a bus, and in the accident was,
We didn't lose any students though, right?
no, the students are perfectly fine. It was but the bus was declared to be not
Okay.
repairable at this point. So we did luck into the fact that we found a demo bus, and we'll be able to get that demo bus at more than a 10% reduction in cost in the normal price that bus would have been if we bought it new. Still just drove around for a year. It's a perfectly great bus. It is a special ed bus and has a lift on it, and it's supposed to be here very soon. The part of it was the fact that we needed as many buses as we could because of all the growth, and that one we could get very quickly. The other buses we'll have to order, and when ordering buses, we'll be ordering 4 regular buses. I always call them regular buses, 78 passenger. And we'll be ordering 5 27-passenger bus with lifts. These will be able to be used especially for those long runs that we have that go to Hagerstown, and they go Hagerstown every day, or they go to Leesburg, and they go to Leesburg every day. We'll be putting those buses to use. They get better gas mileage. We were going to buy them without the lifts because it was cheaper, but after doing the research, it's not cheaper because the state and the federal government won't allow us to charge any special ed special ed student for riding the bus unless it has a lift on it. And that
When he says charge, he means get
Medicaid.
reimbursed from the.
get reimbursed.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
reimbursed from Medicaid.
I didn't want
I'm
anybody
so
thinking
sorry,
we
you're
charge
right.
students to ride the
No,
bus.
we would not charge any student to ride the bus, of course. But at the same time, it's, try to get Medicare reimbursement for it. We did.
Sometimes that's just a charge.
Well, we did do the research, though, to make sure in less than a year with one student that pays for the lift. Now, it doesn't pay for the bus, of course, doesn't pay for the driver or any of the other things, but it does pay for the lift. So we want to put lifts on there just for those reasons.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. What's a conventional 78-person or student bus cost today?
They range, but in general, they range at about $100,000.
And are they, are we still required or buying buses that are flexible fuel?
Some of which are flexible fuel buses. We have, however, went to diesel fuel that's straight diesel now. We don't have biodiesel because biodiesel is very difficult and it's very hard on the bus. That biodiesel actually clogs up the injectors quite quickly. I actually put it in a Bobcat one time, and we had to spend $3,000 or $4,000 just getting the Bobcat cleaned out, because it doesn't run very well in something like that. It's also cheaper, and we saved money by going to regular diesel.
At one point, 2 years ago, prior to 2 years ago, the state was reimbursing us for use of biodiesel at an 8 cents per gallon higher rate than for diesel, and it made up for the difference in cost, so we had a savings. And as soon as the state stopped that reimbursement rate, we switched everything back over to diesel because it's simply too costly for us to maintain it.
And this total cost, does that include putting all of the technology on the buses that we have on the other
Yes.
buses, like
the
Versatran and
Sonar and
cameras
Versatran, yes.
Okay.
All of those buses also have the alarm safety feature that requires the bus driver to walk to the back of the bus, check all of the seats, an alarm goes off, they have to hit the alarm so that you don't accidentally have a kid fall asleep on the bus and then they go back, which...
And even the smaller ones do. You know, you still have to go to the back and push the
Does that include the 3 cameras?
5.
5 cameras?
5, and that does include all 5 cameras.
Okay, other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dingus, we appreciate you wearing your bus tie tonight like that.
There you go, bus.
Okay, what do we have here? Kindergarten teacher posting?
Yes, I requested that we could post a kindergarten teaching position at C.W. Shipley Elementary School. Shipley's one of our four kindergarten classes that are over enrollment, and strategically by placing that teacher there, we're going to help our schools the most, so that we'll be able to absorb transfers to some other schools that are very close to being over enrollment. I see that they also asked for an ECAT aide at that time. I asked that the board gives the superintendent the opportunity not to post that position if it's not necessary, that give that flexibility, because those aren't always after you go over 10 students, but then too, we like to look at our personnel in the county also, that they're all duly assigned. But the teaching position at C.W. Shipley is crucial.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Questions?
You got a room, right, for this?
You probably have music going out to
Yeah.
to the trailer. Probably music would be on the trailer or else in the hall, just going from class to class.
So you've given us some, so can you kind of summarize what this is?
Yeah, I think for what we're looking at tonight is the left-hand column with a K with the kindergarten. You can
This
see
is projected enrollment for this
and
school year.
that's our current enrollment right now. Yeah, I didn't update my title since last spring, but that's our current enrollments of this morning. You can see that Shepherdstown, while it's over 2, it actually was over 6 because 4 of those children have been assigned to other schools already. That C.W. Shipley's 2 over their enrollment without accepting any transfers from the Harpers Ferry Daycare. South Jefferson is 2 over, and T.A. Lowry is 5 over in their enrollment. So the teacher at Shipley, we're able to make sure Paige Jackson, which is only 5 short of going over, we can accommodate Paige Jackson and South Jefferson, which is 2 students over that historically we let those 2 schools try to, they're close to each other for busing students back and forth. And
So we have some, looking right now, we have some availability, capacity at Blue Ridge, North Jefferson, Paige Jackson, and Driswood.
right, and Paige Jackson's very minimal with South Jefferson's
Right there, yeah.
enrollment.
And we're seeing so is this, I mean, are we seeing the same problem at first grade, it looks like?
First grade the heckin' capacity is 25 per class in first grade, so you have a little bit more room there, where kindergarten, as Dr. Gibson said earlier, is 23, and first grade goes to 25. You see, we're not quite as critical in those positions.
And then I didn't understand, so you're posting both a kindergarten teacher and an early childhood
I think if the aid may not be necessary, I think if the aid's necessary, but I'd like to give the opportunity to see that, first, you have to have a attendant in a class to have an aid, but then also that the state gives us the opportunity to move a...
But we're going to give you the approval to do it if you need it.
Right, the approval to do that.
Okay. And we got a motion, because you did the motion. Any more questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Blum.
Thank you.
Do we have a possible executive session?
No, sir.
Any further business before the board? Questions or comments from our colleagues?
I appreciated the training that was offered, and all the bus employees and whatnot that showed up for the Homeland Security training and whatnot the other evening, just to see. It's a bit scary sometimes when you think about some of those situations that could happen, but to look around the room and see basically everybody in the county who is responsible should we have a major event, I think it's important enough to show up to work with, our employees and say, hey, we're a part of this team, and how do we make it the most effective so that we're prepared should anything happen. And that was really, I thought, impressive. And it was from 6 to 10 at night, and to see all of those folks show up when they didn't have to, and they were willing to come in and be trained so that they feel, that they are ready for that as well, says a lot.
It also says a lot that it was entirely child-focused. It was, amazing how all of those people were there to support, the one kid that wanders off from the bus accident or whatever it was. It was impressive.
Yeah.
And much thanks to Mr. Willingham, who actually was the one who initiated that training with there were a lot of folks who brought it together, but it was Mr. Willingham's brainchild, and so deeply appreciative of his efforts. And there were 72 bus drivers and aides who gave up 4 hours on a weeknight to come out and do that. So
fantastic.
That's great.
Thank you. Other comments? Guess we're all looking forward to convocation on Wednesday.
Yes, sir. Convocation Wednesday morning at the Ranson Civic Center.
And I can tell by driving by many of our schools that teachers have been at it for some time, and administrators, so thank you all. We're looking forward to, I know those of us who have children in the school system, we're eager for classes to start.
Eager for the sign to go up on the door.
Yes. We're as eager for it as you are,
So.
interestingly enough.
Anything else? Hearing none, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you. And